It's time for the All Things Strange podcast. We are your hosts, Agent ETA
and Agent Anderson. Come along as we examine UFO sightings, conspiracies, and all things strange. You can find all of our wonderful links in the description on the Linktree, where you can find our Discord, our merchandise, our Patreon, and more. This week's episode, the Alaska Triangle. All right. This is a fun one.
Yeah, it's a great topic, man. I had no idea before, and I've said that many times because I'm just, in general, not in the know. But we could do, I think we should do multiple episodes on the Alaskan Triangle because there's too much to cover in one episode, really.
Oh, yeah. This is just basically a whole bunch of individual cases. There's a ton. At least just like there's one that's often cited as being part of this, which is the Japan Airlines UFO sighting. We're probably going to do a case on that, just that one. So I didn't take notes on it. We'll probably cover it on its own, just as an example of, some of the stuff that's involved with this case.
We'll be mentioning different stuff, that has to do with the Alaskan Triangle. But for this episode, we're probably only going to cover pretty much two angles of it. But there's a whole lot more,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we could string this along quite a bit if we wanted to.
All right, well, let's talk about just a little bit of background. What is the Alaska Triangle? This is an area in Alaska. Oh, by the way, before we continue, I should mention, as always, that this topic was voted upon by our Patreon subscribers. We've got 3 tiers of patronage for you. We got the first tier, which gets you early access and after hours. The second tier, which will get you bonus episodes. And the third tier, which will allow you to vote on upcoming topics, such as this one. This is what they voted for this time, and we are not disappointed. This is a good topic. Good topic,
good
yeah.
vote.
So let's get into it. Apparently, more than the number changes depending on where you look. 16,000, 20,000, something like that. Tens of thousands of people have disappeared since the 80s in Alaska. A butt ton. 500 to 2,000 go missing every year, which is more than double the per capita of anywhere else. A ton of people go missing in this area.
It's a surprising amount, actually.
Yeah, considering it's very sparsely populated, it's a ton. It's way more than I would have thought.
In a way, it's not. It is surprising, but it's not so surprising because there is a lot of vast wilderness out there in this area. So people do go missing in the wilderness. They get disoriented, they get turned around, they don't know where to go. So they get lost and missing. And it's a very vast area. So it's hard to search.
Yeah.
It's hard to find a needle in a haystack sometimes, right?
Yeah,
so
that could be part of it, yeah.
In a way, it's not surprising, but the numbers do, they are kind of astonishing that it's a lot of people to go missing.
Yeah.
And for various different reasons, supposedly, too.
We'll look at some individual cases that are a little bit strange. Some people compare this to the Bermuda Triangle, but they say that there are even more people's airplanes and things that go missing in this area.
Yeah,
so the triangle...
There's a lot more reasons why people go missing, too.
Yeah.
It seems.
The triangle itself, you draw a line from Juneau to Anchorage, and then all the way north to a town named Utqiagvik.
Not going to try to pronounce it.
I heard it pronounced as Yukiavik. I don't know if that's accurate, but that's what I heard in one of the videos. I was looking up trying to figure out how to pronounce it. And that's,
I accept that pronunciation.
Close enough for me. I mean, I'm not going to be able to, that's I don't know what that is. That's a strange name for me. So that is like one of the most northern points in Alaska. So you have this triangle that's, covers most of Alaska and part of Canada, a little tiny bit of Canada snuck in there as well. So it's a huge area. And Alaska itself is really, really big. It's over twice the size of Texas. It doesn't look like it's that big because the way the maps usually are, they're sort of distorted. But
Yeah.
yeah, Alaska is friggin' huge, and most places in Alaska are extremely remote and extremely wild. There's no roads that go anywhere. People have to fly
Yeah.
everywhere in little tiny Cessnas. That's how people get around up there outside of a local area.
A lot of
So
people use bush planes up there
yeah, so it's
just for
kind of a
bringing in
unique
supplies.
place as far as the setting.
Yeah, and I've heard people complain about like, the inflation and like not just inflation, but how expensive it is to live in Alaska because it's one of those areas where they don't produce a lot of what they consume,
Hmm.
and a lot of the products that they do consume have to be flown in basically, so it makes the cost skyrocket. So
Yeah.
it's seems like it could be a cool place to live, but the cost of living is pretty damn high just because of that fact.
I thought people who live there did get some kind of stipend from the oil money,
They do,
so that
yeah, from the
might
state.
help a little bit.
I don't know how much is from the oil money. I know that the state does give people money per year to live there. I don't recall off the top of my head what it was, but
Hmm.
I've heard of that.
All right, so lots of weird things are reported in the triangle. Some of it related to disappearances, things like UFOs, Bigfoots or big feet, I don't know, vortices.
Cryptids,
Yep. And probably the Loch Ness monster. I don't know. Anything you can think of has probably been
sure, why
reported in
not?
this area at one time or another. There's a lot of paranormal stuff happening in Alaska, apparently. The first case, or well, not the first case, not the earliest case, but the most prominent case. Do you want to tell us about that ETA, the one on October 16th, 1972?
Yeah, absolutely. So this case involved a couple different politicians. The most prominent one at the time, at least, was his name was Thomas Hale Boggs Sr., born on February 15th, 1914. So this fellow at the time was an American Democrat, and he was a member of the House of Representatives from New Orleans, Louisiana, or should I pronounce it Louisiana? No, that was horrible. Sorry, I'm
Try
sorry for
again, try
that.
again.
Actually, sorry for that.
Edit.
I don't do whatever. Oh, would you look at it? Um, anyway, so yeah, he was from Louisiana. I'm not going to try the accent again because I'm horrible at accents. Besides maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I'm not going to do that either. I'm not going to subject you to that right now.
Maybe
Okay.
in the after hours.
I might give it a try. I mean, we do have the power of editing, so
Yeah.
uh, maybe I'll get it right. That's a possibility, but I'm not. I don't feel very strongly about it. But so at any rate, so yes, it happened. This disappearance happened on October 16th, 1972, and it involved four people. They were flying in what was it, a Cessna? Let me look at my notes here.
310, I think.
Yeah, Cessna 310,
It's a twin engine.
and yes, and so they were traveling from Anchorage, Alaska, to Juneau, Alaska, and it was part of a fundraiser for Representative Nick. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right. Begich, I think. I
Yeah,
think
I think
his
that's
last
close.
name is it's close enough, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So at any rate, yeah, they were traveling from Anchorage to Juneau, part of our fundraiser for Mr. Begich. He was a freshman congressman from Alaska. Yes, it was a Cessna 310 plane, twin engine, and it was piloted by Don Johns. And the fourth guy that was in the plane there was an aide to Begich. And
Now the detail that it's a twin engine I find interesting because the reason to have two engines is because it's redundant. If one of those engines fails, you can fly with just one engine on that airplane.
uh-huh,
So I
uh-huh.
find it extremely interesting. I mean, of course it's possible. Of course it has happened in the past, but it would be extremely unlikely for both engines to fail at the same time. It's just pretty rare.
Yeah.
It happens, but it's pretty rare.
Yeah, so the aide's name was Russell Brown. It was reported that when they did take off, there was a little bit of weather going on there. So, I mean, with vanishing within like foul weather, it does happen. But usually you'd have some kind of radio communication or something like that stating that they were having some kind of problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, with these individuals being, high profile characters, when it was realized that they were missing and they were behind schedule, they conducted a pretty large search. It was said to be, if not the largest, one of the largest at the time. And it also involved more than 140 military and civilian aircraft. And they searched over an area of 325,000 square miles, which is huge.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of area to scour in, like we said before, needle in a haystack, right?
I saw different numbers. I saw one number I saw was 25,000. One number I saw was 325,000. I'm not sure which is accurate.
I saw a couple, but I wanted to name the biggest number I saw,
Either way, it was like, a little bit less than 100 airplanes or something.
Yeah.
Looking all over the damn place.
Yeah, and they searched for around 39 days, from what I understand.
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious. I was thinking, why not go for 40? Why not make it a nice even 40? They got to 39. They're like, fuck it. They're gone.
I have a little bit of OCD, so I would prefer 40 days because I don't like odd numbers. I prefer even numbers for whatever reason. I don't know why, but at any rate, yeah. So they searched for 39 days, and they didn't see any sign of the wreckage or any parts of the planes or anything like that. They couldn't find anything. So with that much effort put in, you think it's they might be able to find some kind of sign of the wreckage, but from what I understand, they didn't. So
not a shred of anything was found.
Yeah, and actually, this case is one of the cases that brought a lot of attention to missing people in the Alaska Triangle.
Yeah.
Eventually, it wasn't right away, but eventually did bring more attention to the topic. You know what I mean? So yeah, they vanished and nothing was to be found of them. And a little side note, actually, it's kind of funny. Boggs's widow, Linda Boggs, who he married in 1938, and also managed his political campaigns. She actually was the person to succeed him. And she was elected and served for like 18 years. Let me see.
Oh wow,
18 years. Yeah, 18 years in Congress. And
nice.
Actually, and a little side note also on that side note is actually she was appointed by Bill Clinton in 2001 to be the ambassador to the Vatican.
And, really? Okay.
The Vatican is how many countless freaking conspiracy theorists around that?
I know.
I would love to be a fly on the wall in the Vatican's like their vaults and stuff, to see what kind of like information or historical items that they have locked up, that would be, I've heard all sorts of different stories. Who knows what's true, but
I bet they have a lot of photo albums. All your little boys are belong to us.
Yeah. But like, I've heard many a story that claims like the Vatican has like suppressed certain information and what have you, and they store it away in their vaults.
And it's going a little far afield, but the Vatican has said a couple times that, we're going to go ahead and give ourselves permission to proselytize to aliens. And
which is
wild. I was like, what? Like, why would you need that ability? Huh? What? Go ahead, tell us. Why do you think you need to proselytize to aliens? Why would you say that? That's kind of weird. But
quite odd.
Hey, Jesus is for everybody, not just here on Earth, but for everybody.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
But that's a whole other topic, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the probably the most famous case, I would say. But there's countless freaking cases. Like if you want to look into all of this, man, like we don't have the time to get into the weeds with all the different cases. There's so freaking many.
No, there's so many. I was looking into UFO cases in the Triangle, and there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sightings I found just on New Fork. And then looking into like old documents and newspapers, there's even more. There's thousands of them. There are so many. Like we could do an entire show just on this region. That's how much stuff happens here. Easily we could.
Oh yeah. But just on that one case that we just mentioned, with Boggs, that's an episode within itself. But like I said, we're touching just on the tip.
Yeah, just the tip.
She said, but So yeah,
of
we're trying to
the
just
iceberg, just the tip of the iceberg.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's
Just to
what I
make
was talking
sure
about.
for all you people out there with dirty minds, that's not what I meant.
Yeah, stop it.
Yeah. But the case you just mentioned, actually, if according to what I read, that's what Congress passed a law requiring all
Oh yeah.
airplanes to be installed with
Hmm.
emergency locator transponders. So that, I mean, that case was a big deal. It's not
Yeah,
every day that you lose the Speaker of the House. Also, there are some more conspiracies flying around about that one. I don't think you mentioned, but
yeah,
Boggs was actually on the Warren Commission, and
yes,
he didn't think it was a lone gunman.
yeah, yeah. There's talk about him like a what do you call it? Freaking mobster activity. Maybe like because he was on the Warren Commission, and maybe that's why the plane went down. It was sabotaged in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, there's all sorts of conspiracies. Like we said, just that one case is very easily an episode on its own.
Hmm.
All right, so next up, let's talk a little bit about the magnetic anomalies in the area. People who are search and rescue for various efforts and cases have reported their compasses going wild off to as much as 30 degrees off of, where it's supposed to be. They've reported feelings of being disoriented, lightheaded, and even having audio and even visual hallucinations. This is reported by many people, not just one. So the idea, people attribute this to what's called vortices. Now there are positive vortices in some
Is it
areas.
vortices or vortices?
I'm not sure. You
Okay.
have to ask a smarter person about that one.
I'm also a little lightheaded because I've been sipping on the Scorpion Amber Ale made by Mud Shark Brewing here in Lake Havasu City. It's no big
And
deal. It's pretty
that's not
good.
an advertisement. That's just beer that we
It's not.
enjoy. I've had
Yeah,
that
it's
one.
good.
It's good.
Yeah,
I'm
it's good.
having
Solid.
some I'm having some Canadian Crown Royal whiskey.
Oh, okay.
It's good.
I thought you were gonna say playing the other again, which would
Yeah.
make me
Yeah.
super jelly.
I'm putting it in a
It
little
always
tiny
does.
I'm putting it in a little tiny cup so I can put my pinky up as I drink it,
Oh, nice. You're fancy.
Yeah. Fancy stuff there. Where was Oh yeah, vortices. I don't know why I picked up my phone to do that. I don't know. Maybe I'm part Italian. I talk with my hands. So there are positive vortices in some places. Like for example, Sedona. We talked about that. I don't know if you were on that one or not, but I talked about that I think on a bonus episode because we actually went to Sedona
Uh-huh.
and I thought it was all going to be a bunch of bullshit to be honest. But we went to one of these areas where these vortices were supposed to be, and I actually kind of felt something. I don't know how to describe it, but
Really?
it
I don't think I was on that episode.
I was really surprised to find kind of what they described you would feel when you
Really?
experience a vortice. It blew me away. I was like, what? It could be positive confirmation bias or whatever you want to call it, because I thought that that was something that would happen in the place. That's something that happened to me. But one
Hmm.
way or another, I actually did feel something. It was really weird. But there are also that's a positive vortice where you go, you feel happy. It's supposed to have healing energies and all that stuff. But there are also negative or downward spiraling vortices in other places. And one of those places people suspect is the Alaska Triangle. And they think that's what might be part of these magnetic anomalies and part of these strange symptoms that people report in the area, particularly when they're looking for crash victims or lost hikers, things like that. I couldn't find necessarily pinpointed areas. Like if you go to Sedona, there's something like 5 or 7 vortices in that area, and they pinpoint them exactly where they are. You can drive right there, and some of them you have to hike to. But this, I didn't. All I could find was that just the vortices were really, really big. It's kind of suggesting that the entire triangle might be a vortice. Who knows? I don't know. Anything's
Hmm.
possible. But sorry for the I don't know. I think it's just allergies. Maybe I'm getting sick again, which I was just over being sick, so it's really frustrating. But I got a little bit of the phlegm here, so apologies for that. So, anyways, downward vortices can cause depression, nightmares, disorientation, confusion, hallucinations, electrical malfunctions, and pretty much anything that people want to attribute to it. Also, a lot of the stuff that people report in the Alaska Triangle. This is not the only negative vortice, but it's the one we're talking about today. So I don't know if there's anything to that or not, but based on my experience when we did go to Sedona, beautiful place. You don't have to go there for, for the vortices. It kind of feels like you're in the Grand Canyon at the bottom, but there's like towns and shops and things, so you can actually have lunch
Hmm.
there. Pretty neat area. I'd recommend people check it out. But anyways,
Yeah, very, very beautiful landscape there.
after having experienced that firsthand, I think maybe there is something to this. Maybe it is possible for there to be a negative vortice. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. What do you think, Agent ETA?
I don't know. I try not to think, but
I'm gonna get
yeah,
out my crystals and start meditating pretty soon here.
shit, it's a possibility, man. Because I mean, like one of the things I've been interested for the longest time is like the Earth's like magnetic grid and how it relates to like megalithic structures being like placed and built on certain like intersecting ley lines,
Hmm.
and the possibility. I'm not saying that I believe this fully, but I think there's a possibility that some of these structures may have been built with the specific intent to use them as like maybe a lot of people who are watching this probably have heard this theory before. Maybe some of these structures were built to take advantage of that and to possibly build some kind of a power grid of some sort. You know, so I mean, I don't know. I mean, I find that very interesting,
Yeah.
but and I don't know exactly how that relates to vortices or whatever. But it reminded me of it. But I mean, I think it's definitely possible. I don't think we understand the totality of the Earth's magnetic grid and ley lines and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Anything's possible. And, like I used to think this stuff is all a bunch of woo woo nonsense, but when I went to Sedona, I'm like, well, maybe there's something to it after all. I don't know.
Hmm.
It was a strange experience for me. All right, so next up, let's talk a little bit about the Otterman. Did you hear about the Otterman?
I'm not familiar with the Otterman. Is that one of the cryptids or
Yeah, this is a cryptid in the area. I
okay?
guess the Tlingit
I-
and
Is that
Shamian
the
people.
is that the one that like snatches people off of docks or something like that? Or
I don't know about the docks, but what I read is that there's a kind of a cryptid that basically looks like an
oh
otter.
yeah, it's
And
half human, half otter, right?
yeah,
I do remember hearing that. Well, I don't know. I didn't look into it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't like for this episode, there's not enough time to, I mean, we could do a whole episode just on this cryptid, but
Uh huh.
like everything, we're just touching on it, just the tip of the iceberg for this one. But basically, it's a half man, half otter that appears to lost people and acts friendly and pretends to guide them to safety or whatever. But really, it takes them to an even more secluded area and they get even more lost. And once they get to a
Oh,
certain place, it either eats them or converts them somehow to Kushtaka.
Mormonism or Scientology? Oh, okay. Never mind. Oh,
No,
the
no.
old bait and switch.
Yeah. The old bait and switch, yeah. But they're called kushtaka, and either they eat their victims or somehow transform their victims into kushtaka. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but that's the
Huh.
story. Kind of a fun one there. I'm
Yeah.
always I'm always
Well,
down for some local legends.
yeah. I'm sure if you were to talk to some people, like some of the indigenous people of the area, they could probably tell you a lot more about that.
Yeah.
Because that's where it comes from, right? Is
Yeah.
that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah, it's people who live in Alaska from natives from that area. All right, so that's kind of just some background about the Alaska Triangle. Now, I looked up some UFO sightings from areas around there. Did you look up some stuff about some specific cases for missing people?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, there's so many like a lot of the missing people that I'll talk about. I'm going to kind of run through it a little bit.
Yeah,
The Boggs case, and then there's another case about in 1950 a Douglas was a C-54D plane with like 44 people on board. I'll talk about
right.
that because it's like one of the ones that stands out to me. I'll go through some other cases that are somewhat well known, or some of the better known ones.
Yeah.
But I won't. Those are the two cases I plan on talking a little bit more about. The other ones,
Okay.
like I'll kind of just like run through and just give you the gist of it. I guess you could say.
All right. Why don't we switch off? Why don't you go first, then I'll go, then you go, so forth, so we can mix it up a little bit because I got a bunch of these here. I doubt we'll get through all of these UFO cases, but we can switch off for a little bit here, so it's mix it up a little bit.
Okay. All right. So I guess I'll start off with some of the mentions there. Some of the cases I'll run through a little bit faster, and then I'll end on that 1950 plane crash there, or well, plane disappearance.
All right.
So like we said before, there's tons of people that have gone missing in this area, and it's like some of the estimates, like we said, were like 16,000 to 20,000 over a broad period of time. But I'll start off with this one wildlife individual. His name is Richard Lehman Griffiths, and he was an inventor of like wildlife survival type stuff, you know. And there was an instance in the summer of 2006 where he had gone out to test out this survival cocoon that he had built. And he went out there. He was supposed to be testing it. He had gone out many times, and nobody really questioned or thought it was odd that who was going out and do this. This is something he, you know, did often, right? So he was in like the southeast area of Alaska, and he went out there, tested it. It was like along like the Alaskan Highway, and he had actually checked into a lodge near White River, Alaska. Excuse me, and he left some of his gear there, so they know he was there. And he had talked to some of the people around like that site and stuff, and told them what he was planning and stuff. And he ended up going out to an area called McCarthy to go camping and test out his stuff, you know. Um, and he went missing, you know. He was near the St. Elias National Park, and he went out there, and nobody ever heard from him again after he went out there testing in the wilderness, you know.
Yeah, and
So that's it.
one of the weird things was that he wasn't reported for like a year. They didn't go look for him,
Yeah,
right? Because he had told his
yeah.
friends, "Hey guys, I'm gonna be out there, probably stay out there all season. So peace out. See you guys in a year, basically." So
Hmm.
they didn't look for him right away. And by the time they did, of course, who knows what kind of predation or
Well,
snowfall or whatever.
at that point, like after that much time has gone by, like you're probably going to be, because of like the weather and because of like, you know, animals and stuff like that, you're probably going to be skeletal remains. And who knows how, you know, the material he was carrying on him, you know, if that's going to degrade or not. But like we said before, another like needle in the haystack type area where,
Yeah,
you know, good luck, you know, good luck finding him, you
the
know. But and
wilderness is vast in Alaska.
hmm yeah, yeah. So another one is this fellow named Alan Foster, and of course he's another person that went missing in the Alaska Triangle. And so this was on September 9th, 2013. And Alan flew a plane. It was called a Piper PA 32-260. And he was later reported missing after he was traveling over the Alaska Triangle region. His transponder safety board, I guess it was reported that he had been flying under it's called Visual Flight Rules Flight Plan.
Hmm.
I'm not a expert with with aviation, so I'm not sure exactly what that means. But anyways, he was supposed to be stopping in an area called Cordova, and if conditions allowed it. Um, However, 18 minutes after he took off, uh, it was around how do you pronounce that? The Malaspina Glacier, and it's around like the Gulf of Alaska. Radar actually showed that his aircraft descended about 1,100 feet before disappearing, and there isn't any indication exactly why that happened. Now that it could be just a regular malfunction, well, not regular, but an actual malfunction, you know, that caused this to happen. But it's another case where, you know, he disappeared, and they never found any evidence of his aircraft or anything like that, you know.
Yeah, like
So,
with so
like I
many of
said,
these cases, just vanished without a sight, without a
yeah,
sign.
yeah. I mean, like I said, there's countless ones, you know. But let me go to where is okay. So on this is the story of the 1950 Douglas C-54D disappearance. So on January 26th, 1950, there was a plane called the Douglas C-54 Skymaster, and this plane was part of a joint Canadian-U.S. military exercise. and it had 44 people aboard the plane.
Oh wait,
Um,
let's do a UFO first.
oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Let's mix them up a little bit.
All right, yeah, sounds good.
All right, so here's a UFO sighting I have from Katowice from 12/1/2009. And this is a remote area all the way to the north that only sees 2 airplanes a day and no more air traffic than that, sometimes less. A witness saw 3 lights on the horizon dancing around each other and moving up and down.
They're doing a little do-si-do, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. They're sort of interchanging and stuff. They also changed from yellow to white to red to orange in color. Then they would fade out and then fade back in. So they sort of just fade, disappear, fade back in, and then do it all over again. The witness watched this for a little while, and after a little while saw 2 more groups of 3 lights spaced evenly on each side, looked like they were a couple miles apart, and those groups behaved in a similar manner to the first group. It was about a 30-minute sighting. Weird? Really weird? What is it? I don't know. So that's a short one. Let me do another one, and then we'll go back to you with some missing people.
Oh, sure.
All right, my next one happened on July 29, 1979. This one had 6 witnesses, Air Force witnesses, flying in a C-141, which is like a big cargo plane. It's a big guy, chonky boy.
It's a big boy.
Yeah, as Agent Egg would say.
Goddamn, boy, you thick boy.
It was it was it was clear
Sorry, I couldn't help
conditions.
myself.
And here's the witness's description. They said it better than I could. So, quote, all at once we noticed an anomaly, a darkened area below and ahead of us. It looked like a depression on the Atlantic Ocean. Not a depression, more like an opening or a hole in the ocean. And from our estimation, it looked to be at least 90 miles or so across, if not more. And the nearer we got to the lip of the opening, the harder the C-141 was to control and keep in flight.
That's
Suddenly,
what he said.
You what?
What? Nothing.
Oh, suddenly our flight compass started spinning and other flight instruments started malfunctioning. All at once, our aircraft dropped from 30,000 feet to 15,000 feet in a matter of seconds, where we were finally able to regain the aircraft's control. That's when me and my flight crew, that's what it says, Agent ETA. That's when me and my flight crew noticed them flying below us. There were 6 disc-shaped aircraft. As we watched them, they suddenly started flying as if they noticed our presence and altered their course directly toward our aircraft.
Who's reacting to him?
In a matter of just seconds, they were alongside of us, and it was as if they were posing for us. We snapped some pictures of them. All at once, the disc-shaped craft started glowing and suddenly shot straight up in the air and were instantly out of sight. We radioed and reported our encounter and our discovery of the polar opening and its exact location by way of latitude and longitude coordinates to Ellison Air Force Base. We were given strict orders to not discuss it with each other or even our immediate family members.
Oh.
When we got back to Ellison Air Force Base, we were placed under strict quarantine for several days. All of the flight logs and photographs were taken and classified top secret. They wouldn't let us out of quarantine unless we agreed that we didn't have the encounter and that we hadn't seen the UFOs and the strange hole in the ocean. We were all reassigned to different bases throughout the area. So that's a really fascinating story. I don't know if I totally buy it for a couple of reasons. First of all, I actually had to I had to edit some of that grammar because the grammar and spelling was like really rough, like really bad.
Oh, really?
Sentence structures are bad and all this stuff. And I find it hard to believe that an Air Force pilot doesn't know how to structure a report. I've read an awful lot of Air Force documents, and I've never once have come across somebody from the Air Force who wrote a document that was this poorly written. I've never seen anything close to this. Second of all, some of their details in the report For example, they say that their photographs and flight logs were taken and classified top secret, and I think the way they worded was we had no access to them or something. That's not really what would happen. They would just confiscate those things. They wouldn't tell them what they did with them. They would just take them. They wouldn't say, okay, we're going to
Yeah.
take these and now they're going to be classified top secret. No, they would just take them and they would disappear and they would never be seen again. They wouldn't tell them what the classification was. There's a lot of
Yeah.
details like that in this story that kind of make me think, all right, maybe this one's made up. But I still kept it in because it's a really good story, really good description. You know, they're flying and they see this big hole in the ocean, and then when they get near it, they lose control of their airplane. It drops 15,000 feet, and then they see flying saucers. It's a very exciting story. So even
Yeah.
if it's made up, it's still a good story, you know.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But I don't know if I believe it entirely myself. Although I thought it was still a lot of fun, so I kept it in there. What the hell? All
Yeah.
right,
Kind of needs to be a little bit more meat on the bone there to make it more believable, right?
yeah. If you just listen to the way they narrate it, it doesn't sound like a genuine experience. It sounds like something that somebody's making up. And
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
I won't go over each and every little detail, but there's a lot of subtleties in there that to me don't really sound all that genuine. But
No.
all right, you want to get to some more disappearances?
Yeah. Heck yeah. Why not, dude? So yeah, like I had said before, this is like the second one that really kind of stuck out to me when I was going through some of these disappearances, and the main reason actually is because of how many people were involved, really. So, like I had said, on January 26, 1950, a Douglas C-54 Skymaster, serial number 4272469 to be exact, had 44 people on board and disappeared. So the flight was supposed to go from Anchorage, Alaska to Great Falls, Montana. And before they had actually taken off, they had a delay because they had an engine problem. So it actually got delayed quite a few hours, a couple hours at least, you know. And so they had to, go through the checks and balances and make sure that the craft was flight worthy, right? So the crew was an 8-man crew, and it was carrying 36 passengers. And one of the sad points in this case is two of the civilians were on there was a woman and her infant son.
Hmm.
So that's always just, it's not just the number of people that were lost in this case. It's also a mother and her child, newborn child that was also lost.
Yeah, that's
So
tragic.
yeah, absolutely. So 2 hours after they had taken off, they did make their first check-in, the scheduled check-in over Snag, Yukon, and the pilot had reported that there was no problems. The plane was running fine. It was on schedule. No issues to report from what the quote says. So the second check-in that they were supposed to have, they never made, and obviously they never made their destination. I will try to pronounce the area that they're supposed to have their second check-in. It's
You can do it.
it's let me see, Ashahik, Ashahik,
Okay.
Asahik. I don't freaking know, dude. Anyways, that was it was over the Yukon area as well, but they never made that check-in, and after that, people started to wonder, like, what the hell? Like, it after they had not shown up in Montana, a search and rescue, party was put together, and it was a lot of people involved, just like that Boggs incident as well. It's supposed to be somewhere around like 85 American and Canadian planes, in addition to 7,000 personnel searching quite a few square miles.
Wow.
I've heard, just like the Boggs one, I've heard different estimates. The highest one that I had heard was 350,000 square miles.
That
I don't
seems
know
like
if
a
that's
lot.
true. It does seem like a lot, but I've heard anything from 100,000 square miles to upwards, like I said, 350,000. So at the very least, there was a lot of people involved in the search because there was a lot of people involved in the disappearance as well. So so at any rate, that flight was, like I had said, part of a joint effort between Canada and the United States for military war game scenarios. And yeah, the operation to try to find this plane went on for a little while, and then they never found anything. It's a reoccurring pattern with a lot of these disappearances, especially when it comes to like planes and stuff like that. And there's a lot of people that were, that had gone into the forest or the wilderness that were also lost. And but with a plane though, you would think there would be more of a chance of finding something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Parts of the plane, the wreckage,
Well,
or
a plane that can carry 40 people, it'll crash, it'll knock down trees, it'll leave a trail of debris wherever it crashes. So you would expect that's a big boy right there. That's not a little tiny Cessna that can fall into a
yeah,
crevasse and leave no trace. You'd expect to
yeah,
find something, especially with a big search like that. By the way, I looked up the
yeah.
size of Alaska. The land area is 571,000 square miles. So I'm guessing they didn't search 300,000 square miles. That's an awful lot.
Yeah. It makes sense to me. I mean, shit. It's a hell of a large area.
Yeah, it's huge.
But within the search and recovery operation that was launched, um, there was supposedly some different, like some problems, like some false positive reports of like smoke signals, but they were never able to find like where these smoke signals were. There were reports of like a garbled radio communications
Hmm.
where like they had heard someone say something over the radio, but they couldn't understand what it was or from who it was. That doesn't make any sense to me because when you're on the radio, I don't know if that's true or not. Because don't they have like call signs and stuff that you, like when you hear communication from a plane, you can tell who's talking to you. Is that true?
Well, yeah, but you can have radio can be garbled. The conditions, everything can affect radio, like whether or not it's raining, whether or not there's an aurora
Mm.
borealis going on, the
Oh, okay.
location of the moon. Like the radio signals are kind of
Yeah.
weird. So there's a lot
Oh,
of
okay.
stuff that can
Yeah.
cause interference with that. So that's not necessarily anything too unusual, but it also kind of gets my imagination going wild. What if those were communications that were barely squeaking through some kind of portal or something like that, and that's why they were garbled? That's where my
Mm.
mind goes.
I suppose it's possible.
Yeah.
So, an extra hindrance to the operation of the search and rescue were supposedly there were, some of the people who were involved in the search were poorly trained, and there was also their tactics, I guess, weren't up to par from what had some of the reports that I had seen. I don't know exactly how accurate that is, but shit, that could be a possibility for the reason why they didn't find anything because maybe some of the people that could have been in the right area maybe didn't know what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that could be. Yeah. But I mean,
So
they're just looking around though. They're looking for any sign of debris or crash or
yeah.
survivors or anything.
Well, so during the search, there was actually three planes that crashed
Oh, really?
during. Yeah. So I mean, it might be possible. It's could be possible. I don't know, but there was collateral damage
Cut your
involved in that
losses,
search
guys.
at a certain point, right?
Just let it go. Okay, hold on a second here. All right, let's continue. Agent ETA, apologies for the interruptions.
Hey man, no problem.
All right, so
Give me an opportunity to sip on some more beer.
you were just saying that a couple of planes were lost during the search.
Yeah, three planes crashed during the search, so the possibility of ill-trained individuals being involved in it could be there. That might be true.
Maybe, but you would think that they would have their pilot's licenses, right?
Yeah, I would
Licenses.
think so. I would think so.
They're not going to just let, I mean, airplanes are not cheap. They're not going to let some Yahoo off the street fly an airplane just because they need to look for somebody out in the wilderness. So I don't know, dude. Like it's getting your pilot's license not that easy. Like they don't just hand them out. You got to go to
Yeah,
flight school and ground school and all kinds of school.
yeah, takes a lot of time and money if you're a civilian, but if you are in the military, then it doesn't take any money on your part, but does take a lot of time, and the training is typically pretty solid. So you think if you're a military pilot, then lack of training wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. But yeah, who knows? Who the heck knows? All right. Any more on that case?
Well, there's plenty more, I'm sure, but I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much all you got for us on
That's
that one.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. I'll do another UFO one. I got a quick one here. This one happened on 6/15/1981 at about midnight. That's an approximate estimation. Some of these were reported, years later, and people are like, all right, it was approximately this date. I don't remember exactly, but it was around this time. So this one happened at Point Barrow, and this would be, again, in the very far north of Alaska. Here's a quote from the sighting. My dad worked for the police department and got a call around 10 p.m. that some tourist had seen a UFO near the beach and that they had burned half their faces off of the reflection from the ice and the UFO. Not sure what that means, but we've covered cases before where UFOs have injured people, so I'm thinking it's something like that. So we hurried in my dad's car and drove south. Yeah, that's, let's say, you're a police officer, you get a call, and your first thing to do is, okay, this people got their faces burned off. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna bring my family with me. Let's go check it out, guys.
Sounds like a good outing.
Yeah.
Good family outing.
Or maybe he doesn't like his family, He's like, I got to do something with this wife, man. She's gonna divorce me. I can't afford that. I have to get rid of her, man. There's a UFO burning people's faces off. Let's do it.
Sounds like a good opportunity.
So we hurried in my dad's car and drove south of where it was reported. And if you look at the map of where this is, where it was reported, the roads don't go all the way there. So I'm guessing some tourists had parked at the end of the road and then had hiked to this location. But anyways, drove to where it was reported, and a few minutes later, I watched a red sliver of light hover for a few seconds and then take off straight up and disappear. It never made never made a sound and moved so fast and like nothing I have ever seen before. So that was kind of an interesting sighting where you have multiple witnesses and you have people being harmed by it. And, I've never heard anything about something like that. There's so many of these cases where you've never heard of them before, and there are interesting things about them.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So do you have more disappearing people, or should I go on with more UFO sightings?
Yeah. I have at least another one.
All right. Let's hear it.
The disappearance of Paul Michael Lemaitre. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Lemaitre. Just say it like you're
Lemaitre.
French, and that makes it easy.
Oh, yeah. Then it all just works out. So,
Yeah.
so at any rate, this fella was a 65-year-old man, and he participated a lot in like marathons and stuff like that. And he was in a marathon within this area, right? It was called the marathon was called the Mount Marathon Race.
Mm-hmm.
So it was in a heavily forested area. And the thing that like kind of stood out to me about this particular case is that there was a lot of other people around. It wasn't like the whole like marathon was like, had people along the whole route, but there was a decent amount of people around, and there would be people that would, be in like certain check-in points or what have you.
Yeah, that's pretty typical for marathons.
Yeah, yeah. So at any rate, it was the 85th edition of this particular race. And the thing that's weird about it, another thing that's weird about it, rather, that how sudden the disappearance was. So usually, like, participants in this have to like run up a certain track, and they have to navigate their way through like the forest, the heavy trees and stuff. You got like creeks and stuff like that, whatever. You have to navigate your way through the competition, but you still do have to check in and stuff. And so the fellow had suddenly disappeared after checking in, and nobody ever saw him again. It was weird because like one of the race stewards, like particularly like he said like, yeah, I remember seeing him. He checked, I seen him, go by, then nobody ever saw him again. They did say that the weather conditions were kind of foggy, but no other like participants in this had any issues with it really. It wasn't like super heavy fog, but it wasn't like a condition where you'd think people would just get, like turned around and lose their way through the forest. It wasn't that bad, but it was foggy.
Yeah,
So,
it gets foggy everywhere on occasion, I imagine.
hmm hmm So yeah, I mean it's one of those ones where like there was enough people around where you'd think that if he did get turned around, he'd still be able to somehow find his way back to other people. So it happened around plenty of other people, and yeah, it was a you know it's a weird case. It's a quick one,
Yeah.
but it's just one of those ones that kind of also stood out to me.
Yeah, well, he just vanished into thin air, and once again, there was a massive search effort, and they found
Yeah,
nothing.
nothing. I mean, state troopers were involved. They even had dogs
Yeah,
involved.
they didn't find a
And
shred of
it's like,
clothing from like an animal attack. They didn't find
yeah,
remains. They found nothing. It's very
yeah,
strange.
no trace at all.
Yeah,
Like the guy just up and just vanished,
yeah,
plain and simple.
just
I know
gone.
it's a quick one, but it also was, like I said, one of those ones that kind of was like, what? That's kind of weird.
Yeah, very strange. All right, so let me get to another UFO. Apologies for everybody for all the noise in the background. What can you do? What can you do? Hopefully the noise removal takes care of it. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So apologies for everybody listening for that. But anyways, um, I got a bunch more UFO ones. I'll do another one or two of these. They're pretty good. This time I went to Fairbanks, which is kind of like in the middle of Alaska. So the first couple I did were from the north of Alaska. This is sort of from the middle, well within the triangle area. So this one is listed as having occurred on, I notated the sighting number. So this is New Fork sighting 105503, occurred on 1949. And
Mm.
the date is approximate, so that we don't know exactly when it happened, just sometime in 1949 or 1950, I think. And it was reported in 2013 by the witness. So let's get to it. I was born and raised. I should do like an old man voice. I was born and raised in the old. No, I can't read the whole thing like that. It's too annoying. I was born and raised in the territory of Alaska. And in 1949, I was a student at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. During the summer of 1949, I worked as a transit man on a survey line for the Civil Aeronautics Administration, which was, that's back in the day when it was the Civil Aeronautics Administration, which was beginning the development of the Fairbanks International Airport. On a clear day in July, in a sky void of sound or activity, there appeared an enormous metallic saucer-shaped object directly above my line of sight, but at a great distance from us. I shouted to my two chainmen. I thought I was going to say children. Two chainmen, yeah, because my children are making a bunch of noise, and pointed to the object, which was approaching rapidly until it appeared directly above us, but still at an altitude higher than any aircraft I had ever observed. Its size was enormous.
Mm.
I imagined it would cover several city blocks in size. It was visible for about a couple of minutes before it made a sharp right angle turn and climbed out of sight. Only one of the
That's
chainmen saw the object. The
that's a
time
big
of the
damn
sighting.
object.
What's what?
So that's a big damn object. Like that's like some Independence Day type of stuff.
Yeah, huge, gigantic. And
Huge.
and I wish we could go question this witness and say, well, why there are two chainmen there? How come only one of them saw it? But we don't know. Maybe the other guy was in a building. Maybe he was taking a nap. Who knows? But only one of the chainmen that were with him saw it. So we have two witnesses at least. The time of the sighting was about 11 o'clock in the morning. At noon, it was time for our break, and we headed back to the survey station where the sighting was discussed with others, suggesting that there were more than two people that saw it, perhaps, because such a large object, you would expect anybody in the area to see it, really.
Oh yeah.
By the end of the day, our story had reached the military at Ladd Field, and when we arrived back at the station, we were approached by an Army officer who interrogated us separately regarding the sighting. Again, suggesting that there are more than two witnesses. He doesn't say that here, but that kind of suggests it. When I was asked how high it was, I responded that it was at least at an altitude of 30,000 feet. The officer asked why I would choose that altitude, and I said it was because I knew of no aircraft that could reach that altitude. And if this thing was 30,000 feet means that he thought it was far away, not close. That might be 30,000 feet. It might be 10,000, who knows? But from his perspective, it was very far away. And he's describing that kind of a size for something that's really far away. And you get a sense of distance. Obviously, there's no real way of knowing, but you do get a little bit of sense of distance because the further away something is, like the hazier it can look in clear conditions. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, something that at least was far away, which I find very interesting. I am aware that this was a very early sighting, but understand that your organization is nevertheless interested in recording all reliable sightings, and since I am now in my 80s, there is no time like the present to report it. So this is something that this guy held on to his whole life, and he probably didn't report it out of fear of ridicule, and he's like, well, I guess now's the time
Yeah.
to report it. Well, I still can, I guess. So that was a
Yeah.
really, really interesting one. I found that one to be very compelling. And it's, just another strange event in the one of very many in the Alaska Triangle area. There's a bunch of weird stuff in that area. All right, so we're getting pretty close to an hour here, so I'll do probably one more, then maybe we'll call it quits. This is New
Right.
Fork sighting 118432. And by the way, there's this really cool thing I found on New Fork. You can look at a list of sightings, like you can just search for a particular whatever disc or Alaska or whatever, and then it'll show you a list of all the sightings pertaining to that particular, area. You can do it by month, you can do whatever. But I found somebody posted on Above Top Secret, they actually have a globe with all of the sightings on the globe. So you can zoom in to Fairbanks, Alaska, and it'll have, little dots of all of the sightings they have reported for that area ever, everything in their database. So
That'd be cool to check out.
it's really awesome. Maybe I'm thinking I want to do a quick little bonus episode, like a little quick video bonus, kind of, doing it, demonstrating it. That wouldn't be the week's bonus episode. That would just be, just a quick little thing for everybody. But that's at New Fork. Let me look up, now that I mentioned it, let me look up the web address, because the web address is real easy to type in. Let's see. So it's nuforc.org /map, and then / newfork.org /map / and then it brings you to, a map of the globe. Let me zoom out here. I had it zoomed into Alaska, but here's the globe just for the camera, and then you can zoom in anywhere you like. So let's zoom in. There's, let's zoom into Northern California. There's all their entries for different localities in Northern California, for example,
I can't
where
quite see your screen there.
I live. Wasn't I holding it close enough?
I think you need to hold it like right in front of your face piece.
Like that? How's
There
that?
you go. Oh, that's better.
It's better. And then I'll zoom out again just in case people didn't catch the global view. So here's the global view, and then you can kind of rotate it. You can rotate it to see anywhere in the world where they have. But obviously, since this is a US based website, there's not that much going on in Russia. They don't have too many reports from there. Ton from Europe, ton from United States and Canada. Everywhere else there are reports, but not quite as many. So it's just because, it's a European and, America centric website. So that's just kind of how it goes. But all right, let's do another one of these here. New Fork sighting 118432. This one occurred on 11/20/2014. So this is a more recent sighting. I was trying to mix it up, do stuff from a long time ago, do stuff for more recent, just because it sort of demonstrates that weird stuff has always been happening here and it's never stopped. There are reports from every decade. There's plenty of reports from different areas in Alaska. All right, this was Fairbanks, Alaska, and the thing that caught my attention is that they give a summary of the case, and this one, every case has a summary, like what shape was the object. They'll say, disc, orb, cigar, cylinder, whatever, the basic shape. There's certain categories of UFOs. This one, they put the shape was unknown. Like, unknown shape, what does that mean? So I had to look at it, of course. So I looked at it, and it was an interesting case. So here we go. They describe the object as a flat platform with intense white, red, and blue lights silently hovering only 30 feet or so above a residential area in town. And here's their sighting report. Driving with a friend on the Steese Highway in town between 3rd Street and 10th Avenue, we saw a very brightly lit craft hovering only about 30 feet or so above the residential area by the VFW. I don't know what a VFW is. It caught my eye because the lights were so intense and it was just hovering there, almost motionless, but not. At first, I thought it was a new street light, but then it moved silently, and the body of the thing was either totally black or invisible. We were stopped at the light on 3rd Street and Steese, and nobody else seemed to see it except for the two of us. I was going to pull off the road after the intersection, but thought the best of it and moved on, so that could have been what others were doing as well, but it just seemed as though people ignored it completely. I rolled the window down to get a better look and listened to see if it was a helicopter, while thinking of it oddly out of place if it were. I have seldom, if ever, seen helicopters hovering that close to rooftops of residential areas before, without police and the rest of the gang there. It seemed out of place to me. It was about the size of a large single-rotor helicopter, though, and either had a flat bottom that held the array of lights, or it was just a flat platform altogether. I did not make out anything above the lights at all, as if it was completely invisible or inky black against the night sky. So it was like blotting out the stars. It made no noise, and the platform with the lights was rectangular, but could have been triangular as far as I could tell as I was driving past it. I kept asking my friend to look for the craft itself and describe it to me, but he had no explanation and couldn't see anything above the lights either. Even having his head out the window, to my surprise, he still just passed it off as some sort of military thing and paid it little more attention than that. It tilted slightly and moved a few feet here and there, kind of like a bee collecting pollen. I kept glancing at it as I went past and looked for it in the rearview mirror after it should have come into view. Oddly enough, that made me start paying attention to the night sky a lot more. I shared my story with a few others just to see if maybe they had seen something similar, or to see if their reactions were similar to how my friend acted. I soon found 2 others who saw crafts as well, and for some reason, both of them also shrugged it off too. That's actually pretty common. I've talked about sightings before on the show where people will do that. They'll see something weird and they'll be like, all right, you know what? I don't like that at all. Get it out of my face. I'm going inside, I noticed that much. Yeah.
Buttered sausage.
Yeah, buttered sausage.
Get it out of my face. Oh, it's not your jam? No, I don't buy jam. I buy honey. And I kiss it on the lips.
I noticed that much taller and very brilliant streetlights started to appear around town less than a week later. The first new streetlight I saw was at the Ford dealership, which was practically the same height and intensity as those on the craft I had seen earlier, but they didn't span the same area at all and were clearly stationary lights. Still, my eyes snapped to those new lamps because the brilliance is very similar to what was on the craft. That is really interesting. Last night, 4:10:15 at around 01:30, I saw, I don't know if that's 1:30 or they're using military time. It just says 1:30. Probably in the morning.
That is military. That is military time. It's 1:30 in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably what they mean is 1:30 in the morning, because they said last night. So I saw another one of those strange crafts hovering over a community just off of Chena Hot Springs Road. There was a bank of mailboxes coming up on Bias Drive, and so this time I pulled over to get a better look. Again, I heard nothing at all, and the craft seemed lazily going about its business in the same manner as the other one I saw. This one was moving slowly off towards the Steese and went over the ridge toward town. I noticed 2 other people had pulled off the road there as well and were standing next to a vehicle talking. I was intent on gaining some higher ground over at a nearby Weller school, so we only exchanged eye contact as I pulled away. At the school, there was no sign of the craft at all over the part of the city I could see. I get the impression that they pose as stars or sometimes very bright streetlights. I also think that most people refuse to believe that they saw anything unusual, even if they can't explain what they saw. I also noticed some similarities between my observations and that of others on this database, such as the red, mostly white, and blue lights, flat bottom, silent and stealthy aspects, as well as my having heard what seemed like a sonar sound before, too, while reading late one night. But I didn't look out the window to see if there was anything there. And that's the end
Like
of
a
the report.
ping. Do you think
Sonar
it's like
ping.
the sonar? Yeah, like a ping.
Yeah.
Like what a submarine might hear.
Yeah,
You
like
gotta like.
boom.
Okay.
And then New Fork has a note here. Witness indicates that the date of the sighting is approximate. PD is signed PD. So that's a really interesting sighting. And unlike the one with the hole in the ocean, this one reads as genuine to me. This does not read as something that was made up,
A
right?
lot of specifics.
A lot of specifics.
Yeah,
It does not
very in
read
depth.
does not read like a narrative. It reads like this is what I saw and I'm going to describe it to the best of my ability. Now,
Mhm.
there is a paint. I forget what it's called. But they did come up with a paint, like a black paint that reflects very, very little light.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this sighting, to me, doesn't sound like something that's extraterrestrial. To me, it sounds like something that's military, that's being
Uh-huh.
tested for some kind of like its stealth or invisibility capabilities, maybe some kind of drone.
Well, I remember my first UFO encounter turned out to be a crop duster. I had never seen a crop. It was at nighttime, and at the time, so I was driving to work. It was nighttime, and I seen these freaking lights, like like making all sorts of erratic like maneuvers and stuff. And I was like, "What the fuck am I looking at?
Yeah.
It's a damn UFO, bro! Look at." And then I got closer, and I was like, "Oh no, wait, no. Okay, I'm over farm. I'm driving through farm fields. That's got to be a crop duster." It
Right.
was.
Yeah.
I
Stuff
I hoped for a second though.
stuff can look weird, and hey, keep those
If
eyes
you're
on
not
the
used to
skies.
it,
Huh?
yeah. If you're not used to it, I had recently moved into the area at that time, and I wasn't used to seeing crop. I've never lived in an area where you had crop dusters.
Yeah.
Or I had to commute through farm fields and stuff on my way to work. But so I just wasn't familiar with it, and it was a very foreign experience, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
And so at first, I just didn't realize what I was looking at. It was just, like I said, it was foreign to me.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, is that a damn UFO? That's pretty low to the ground to be a UFO.
Yeah.
But there's been some cases, though, and so, like, I had a hope. I was like, damn, am I seeing a freaking UFO? Fuck yeah.
You're like, let's go. Let's go.
But then once I got closer, I could see, like, the outline of the plane. I was like, oh,
Hey, oh, man.
that's, you know what? That's got to
Yeah.
be a crop duster,
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and roll my windows up, put my air conditioning on recirculating, so that way I'm not breathing in whatever god awful chemicals that they're
Yeah.
releasing onto the crops.
I know, right? Yeah, so this one, like I was saying, to me seems like a military plane, and if the military wanted to test some sort of stealth capabilities, remote town in Alaska, I mean, it's not that remote, but it's not Los Angeles either. But I have seen UFO witness stories describing what could be a drone painted in this really dark paint, even in places like New York that are, highly populated. So I've seen similar reports to this, and whatever it was, it's pretty interesting stuff. But all right, so that's all we got for you this time. Unless you got any other stories you want to tell, Agent ETA.
It's getting hot. It's getting hot over here in
Yeah.
over Arizona way. I had to turn off my AC for this. So
You're gonna start.
yeah,
You're gonna have to start crop dusting over there pretty soon.
yeah. Well, no, I've been crop dusting the whole time here. Hopefully the noise cancellation will not make sure that the audio isn't picked up there. But
Yeah, one can hope.
no, I wouldn't mind turning my AC back on.
Yeah. All right, well, let's end it here then. I still have there's so many UFO sightings from the area. There's so many weird stories. We might actually do a part 2 for this one eventually. We'll see.
I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I think
all right.
we should.
Thank you guys so much for listening, and we really appreciate it if you give us a good review wherever you listen to podcasts, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And until next time,
Keep it strange.